Hi, Tom Belford here, editor of Bay Buzz Magazine, an online news service. I'm here with Hinewai Ormsby, the chair of the Regional Council. And our last conversation talked about sort of business as usual at the Regional Council, if there is such a thing, I guess.
More.
But now I think we'll turn to the subject that probably is more on everyone's mind, which is recovery and how that will proceed.
Yeah.
And I guess the best distillation of how the Regional Council has assessed what has gone on and what it plans to do is in its so-called Regional Resilience Plan, which has just been issued. Can you tell us what that's all about? What is that? What's that decision process shaping up to be?
Very good. Kia ora, Tom, and thanks for coming in. So if I can start with the recovery of Hawke's Bay. So we have district councils doing locality plans, and they feed into a regional plan. And Hawke's Bay Regional Council is the lead environmental agency and regulatory agency here in Hawke's Bay. Feeds in our Hawke's Bay Environmental Resilience Plan. Now they're based off key PO, 6 key PO. That all councils will put in agencies.
All of the councils follow the same template.
Yeah, that's right, same template. So just so we know, that's the model in which we're working towards. And so we play a key role in the environmental resilience plan, and essentially there are 8 key activities that you would say is the role and responsibility of regional council through legislation. Mainly through RMA and all the acts that we have to deliver on. So that also includes flood protection, catchment management, water security, biosecurity, biodiversity, climate change. So those are the key activities within that pillar that we're taking the lead on. Now we also have to coordinate across the other key PO, and namely is around primary industry, primary sector, and the role that we play with MPI, the other councils and industry in that. So our regional resilience plan sets forth our priorities in terms of recovery. Now, it's the first iteration because central government and the task force that were set up to help coordinate recovery across all the regions who were affected by the cyclone. So we're working with them. We're also working across council and agency. So basically we set forth at the end of that report is initial bid. A bid to central government, to the task force to say, in recovery, these are our priorities, and this is the cost of it.
Here's the cash. Now, I read your plan, and you finally get to section 8 or 9, whatever it is, and it says, and here attached is the appendix that tells us what this costs, and there's no appendix in your public record. Why not? All the other councils have said, here's what our ask is. Why haven't you?
That's a good question. I'm aware of some people have that appendix, but
well,
I'm not sure.
It suggests that it's public. I sent an email when I saw this yesterday and realized the appendix wasn't there, but that hasn't been responded to yet. But let me ask you: the Hastings Council, for example, has a $2 billion ask.
Yes.
I presume that, as you say, all councils, including yours, put in their wish list. It'll be a big number.
Yes.
And the Regional Recovery Agency, as I understand it, is somehow supposed to play a triaging role.
A coordinating role,
in the Hastings plan, they have lots of money in there for things that I would assume are your responsibility. They have a whole waste to energy project in there. They have millions of dollars on climate change resilience, a regional strategy for climate change resilience. Then you look at the Napier plan, and the Napier plan will say, oh, well, we think there's a whole lot of asset improvement stuff here that needs to be done, but the pumps are owned by the regional council, and they don't have any money in their budget to do this, so we're not sure what they're asking for. It doesn't really give you a lot of confidence that people have done anything more than throw a lot of mud at the wall and call everything recovery and ask for a shitload of money on the basis of that.
Yeah, I think you're picking up bits and pieces. So I'll just try and address each comment because there's context and actually connectors in there that you might not be aware of.
All right.
So the Hawke's Bay Regional Council have put in a bid of 800 million. Okay? So that's not a secret. So we're not trying to keep that a secret. In terms of waste, you talked about Hastings District. So if you are aware, I'm not sure if you are, that there is a task force between Hastings District and Hawke's Bay Regional Council where we share costs. So there will be some balances on each of our books, but we are coordinating and partnering there really well.
Okay.
That task force is led by Darren de Klerk. He has 7 or 8 within his task force, and they come across Hastings District, Hawke's Bay Regional, and we're shared funding there.
That's for silt.
For silt, yeah.
Okay.
But you have to understand, district council's also in charge of their own landfill, so they'd probably class that as waste. So that's got nothing to do with Hawke's Bay Regional Council in that sense, right? When you think of Napier City Council and pump stations, so I'm not sure about that comment, but we do have works in there for flood protection. It might not just be pinpointed as broken down as that. So that plan needed to be in 2 weeks ago on Friday, so very forced by the task force. We're working off some of the budget timelines as well, knowing that the budget announcements, we had to, as a region, put in our wish list, as you say, knowing that the region councils will have to look at their own balance sheets. So this will be a shared investment into the wish list. Now, so some of those you think should be regional council, actually maybe it's just not described well enough or detailed well enough, and actually sits with those separate councils. But we are speaking to each other.
And the Regional Recovery Agency, are they staffed up yet? Are they playing any kind of role in really melding things together, or is it pretty much you all talking to each other directly?
So the CEOs of each council have always had their own group. So they meet every second or third day. So they have those conversations. Now we've got Blair O'Keefe as chair of the Regional Recovery Agency, and he's stepping into this role coordinating there. We've got Kiriana Brooking, who's been our interim Regional Recovery Manager, who's been pulling that together. So there is a tight team there of expertise getting this coordination for the Regional Recovery Agency together.
And so I gather the minister will come to town over the weekend and tell you all what kind of money the government is going to hand out, and then you'll all go back to the drawing board and figure out how this all plays into our respective budgets. That's basically the process, right?
Yes.
And then you have to do another version of all this in September or something like that?
Yep, phase 2. So.
And I think you all have public consultation around that version. Is that the intent?
Yeah, so we have a recovery committee that we've repurposed the EICC, and I think you were the chair of that. And we've repurposed that into a regional recovery committee that works on our environment resilience plan in that second phase. So what's envisaged there is community voice, but at the same time we're going to have a process around the categorisation and the risks of 1, 2, parts of 2 and 3 running at the same time. We're also going to be able to capture voices through our independent, some of the reviews that are going on. So you've got the Independent Civil Defence Emergency Management Review, and then the Hawke's Bay Regional Council Flood Protection Assets Review.
What's the timetable for that one?
So the timetable for the CDM review is the terms of reference should be finalised in the next few weeks, the same with Hawke's Bay Regional Council. So what it's envisaged is a shorter process in 2 phases, and we don't want this to drag on. We don't want a review that goes into the new year or even to Christmas. So we are looking at this side of the year, maybe running into a few weeks into the second half of the year.
Your resilience plan talks about the stop banks, and all the numbers are there, and it's I must say each of these plans, whether they're called locality plan or resilience plan, are pretty impressive in terms of all the information that is being gathered together. And my own view is they ought to be kind of required reading. If anybody's going to make a comment about any of these issues, they ought to do that homework. But there is rumor that there might be lawsuits filed and so on as far as stop bank failure is concerned. Is that something that your council's aware of? Or?
I think we've learnt really quickly from the experiences of other floods, i.e. Edgecombe. Look, so we were really fortunate to have CEOs from other regional councils come in and share their experiences with our staff, our senior staff. And it was acknowledged that, you know, there were possible law cases come up to Bay of Plenty Regional Council, post Edgecombe, you know, and that's been a few years on. So it has made us aware and consider how we deal with that, if that's a possibility. And it likely will be, but we don't know when, and we just have to be prepared for that.
Okay. So as a regional authority, in the kind of the institutional role of this council, you as chair, how do you see your voice being heard on? There's a whole variety of decisions that'll have multiple players, including private sector players and other agencies. And I'll give you 3 examples. Redcliffe and the location or the rehabbing or whatever happens there. Critical issue, lots of stakeholders involved in that. Some of them might simply say, well, if the regional council did a better job of stop banking, we wouldn't have this issue. Awatoto, you know, Unison power substation fails, all hell breaks loose, blah, 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 blah. And Unison will make a decision as to how it's going to address that situation going forward. Pan-Pac, the story there seems to be they're considering their own stop bank system. And so all these kind of decisions are getting taken. Do you see yourself and the regional council playing a role in that? How does that happen? Yeah,
good question. And we've been approached by all of those parties. And I think, you know, for the first month at least, there were community meetings. So you talk around Redcliffe, and you're probably thinking of Waiahiki as well, because, you know, I'm a resident of Waiahiki and being personally impacted. And so the community meetings, like at Waiahiki or Pakowhai or S, we've been able to go in there and provide information as best as we can. And really just listen to the stories, listen to where those affected people are at. And so that was if you talk about engagement, I suppose that was our really early engagement with those affected communities, landowners, properties. So that's been our first point and most probably intimate, you could say. And then you have particular projects where they want to protect their infrastructure, protect their business, like Pan-Pac. And in that example, there was a letter sent to us saying, you know, we want to acknowledge what could be built here. We're working on that. We'll come and have a conversation with you, and we can reciprocate and go, absolutely, let's do that. And then obviously we have this conversation with the Crown, who need to be a huge contributing funder to making this real. And so it's talking with them around risk. So there's community, there's business in specific areas around stop banks, and then there's the Crown. And then there's working with the other councils also, because you put a stop bank out, you've got to consider the bridge design, right? Yeah. So there are a lot of conversations that need to be had to try and create some point. So when it comes to stop banks, absolutely, that's our key. That's a key role of ours, and the public acknowledge that, and they know that. So if they come angry, like you talked about, most of them appreciate when you go in there and describe the event in a very simplistic way, in a way where they understand that the level of protection and its design was not fit for purpose for the rain volume that we got. And most can get to that place of understanding. And then we talk about future design to reduce the risk and what it takes to do that. how long it may take, the funding needed, because those are the realities of it.
I guess what I'm getting at is if let's take Unison. If Unison comes to a decision about what it thinks it should do in Awatoto, and the rest of the surrounding businesses think, we're not so sure of that, or you as a council presumably would have to have a consenting role of some sort there. Unison can do whatever it wants to do at the end of the day, right? And there are a lot of those kind of discussions that will be occurring where you would hope that everybody will be very collaborative and all of that, but at the end of the day, it's not clear who's in charge when the dust settles. And so if TransPower says, no way in hell are we going to move this station, it'll cost us $50 million or whatever, well, that's, the rest of everybody has to kind of suck it up and say, well, okay, is that fair? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think when we look at stop bank building, there's a simplistic formula to a degree, and it's around how many lives are at risk.
Yeah.
People, property, their livelihoods, and then it's around infrastructure and business. Right. So in a simplistic way, that's how we look at where investment should go, and it's lives and communities first. So that doesn't quite answer your question, but it provides a basis of decision making.
So it seems to me the other area of tension in all this process has been the degree to which environmental regulations and requirements stand in the way of or impede recovery efforts, most obviously being the whole issue of burning. But I saw in your plan, you guys are going to be lobbying the central government to kind of maybe back off some of the freshwater schedule. The impact of this on your environmental core role is sort of a bit of a collision there, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. In peace times, you'd say it's a collision. In the recovery right now, so I can think of the work our science team need to do to understand the new baseline. So they're hard working in doing that, and they're partnering with NIWA, Manaaki Whenua, Crown Research Agency. So they're doing all they can, so we have a new baseline around state of the environment. Okay, so that gives us a springboard of understanding when we look at policy change like freshwater management, and you're right, there will need to be some extensions there, but Minister Parker's no full either and say, well, it's not going to be years. There's still a regime there. Same thing with RMA reform.
You'll have James on your side.
And we'll have James on our side. Yeah, that's so I talk about very helpful. And then we've got the RMA reform and regional spatial strategy exercise that we need to go through as a region, looking at a new governance form, a new possible RPC, and how that fits in with our current RPC Act with PSGE partnership there. So there are a whole lot of regulatory responsibilities that have to be extended while we look at recovery at the moment. So when you talk about this clash, and those who have experienced disaster like Kaikoura, like Christchurch earthquake, this is where the value of an experienced CEO like Bill comes into play, and understanding what laws can be used. And we've seen swirler and orders in council, but orders in councils take a lot longer than people think. It still goes through quite a lengthy process. So what we can, as an environmental regulator, do is look at where we're comfortable enough to ease off normal time, peacetime sort of enforcement or compliance, right? And how can we manage that in a controlled way that doesn't produce negative effects, particularly around health, say. Okay? But you're still right, we've got a regulation sort of team that would like to keep within stringent rules. Right. But I suppose this is the challenging experience that we have into recovery, is how do we adjust, knowing that there will be, mental health effects that a lot of parts of our community are experiencing. And although, yes, we're backed by the RMA, we also are a local government agency. So there's still those 4 well-beings of our community that we need to take into consideration. Environment being at the top, but we have economic, we have social, and we have cultural well-being. That's part of our fabric as a council.
So in the pointed issue of burning,
Yes.
I've heard.
I knew you'd get there.
And written about 2 of your councillors have been speaking about this.
Yes.
Has the council made a final call on what to do in that space?
What we've tasked our CEO to do is to work with our staff to look into what can we do that's controlled and managed. Now we had to talk to other agencies such as FENS, such as Ministry of Health, Te Whatu Ora, to put together a framework that mitigates any negative effects that we don't want the public and the environment to experience. So I'd say it's not an easy task. It's one that's grappled us as a governors group, as a organisation, that in times of recovery, and we've almost passed the emergency, but that's something that has been hot on our list to work on. And Bill's one of the most experienced person to bring forth those options and recommendations.
Is it fair to say that burning will be in the toolkit somehow?
I think waste management in general, yes, and burning would be a part of that. Yeah.
All right. Well, so now we have maybe 2 or 3 minutes here. Setting aside the most obvious, the silt being probably the big number one, and maybe some of the waste waste issues like this being part of that. Something aside from that, what have been the other environmental damage consequences that you're up against now from this?
It's just huge erosion, and we know this. We've known this has been a problem on our highly erodible land in the region. So it being bare almost, or just grass. And if you get a chance to travel from here to Wairoa, it's tremendous, the erosion that has come off the hills. And we know where that's landed. It's landed on people's property, it's landed in our rivers and out to the ocean. So there has been those initial investigations being done, but we need to go upstream, up catchment. As well, and we have pre-cyclone LIDAR data around that sediment, where it sits, how much of it sits there. So we need to do another investigation post-cyclone to see where exactly it's moved from, how much of it has moved. So we've got erosion, which affects water quality, habitat biodiversity within those aquifer systems, and then we've got slippages that includes the contribution to slips. And so you would have seen there's more talk in media of late around how do we get on steroids put forth towards our programs of erosion control scheme, hill country erosion scheme, and our land for life, which was Right Tree, Right Place, and it's now got this new name, Land for Life. So it's how do we accelerate those programs as well. So that was part of the bid also, is looking at that long-term land use management. And some of that is around helping and supporting landowners to do that. But it's also to say, look, that's still on our priority list, and we know that's our long term, because we just don't know when the next cyclone's going to happen.
Well, and that's something that, wearing another hat, the Hawke's Bay Future Farming Trust will have something to say, and we're going to be meeting with you folks later in the month, I guess. Well, thank you very much. I mean, my takeaway is that you have a hell of a job to do. You're attacking it with vigor and brains, and it all sounds like it's in good hands. And I think people need to be a bit, as tough as it is, a bit more patient with what our various local governments are doing. I don't think anybody's sitting on their hands, and but there is a lot of impatience out there, and the more you can do to get the kind of information out that is in these different locality and resilience plans, I think the better off everybody will be for that.
Feel,
you
yeah,
know, so
absolutely.
Anyway, thank you for sharing your thoughts on these issues with us,
Mm.
and good luck going forward.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks.